and about her not facing sentencing in person, a call for a change in the law there, and NHS managers who could possibly face charges for failing to act sooner to stop the serial killer. I'd love to hear your reaction. We're going to get another call on as soon as we can. Do tweet me at TalkTV, text the word TALK to 87222, and you can give us a call on 0344 499 1000. We'll get to more of those messages coming in very soon. First up, though, let's go live to Manchester Crown Court to TalkTV correspondent Victoria Innes, who's joining us there. Good morning to you, Victoria.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So let's talk about what is going to happen today then, because sentencing, we'd normally expect the judge arrives, the defendant is brought into the dock, but that's not going to happen today.
No, exactly. Look, it's 5 years now since Lucy Letby was first arrested at her home in Chester. And today, for the families of those babies, this will be the culmination of what has been a long and horrific 10 months. Now, what will happen in just under an hour's time, proceedings will get underway. Those families will deliver their personal impact statements, where they will talk about how the crimes of Lucy Letby has affected them. It's not clear at the moment whether we will hear individually from each of the families or whether there will be one sort of collective statement on behalf of all of them. We did hear on Friday, after the final guilty verdicts were handed down, from the family liaison officer, who of course talked about the devastating impact that has had on them, how the past 7 to 8 years have been what was described as torturous. Now, as you say, and what many are describing this morning as the final insult, Lucy Letby will not be present, it's thought, in court to listen to those statements nor to listen to the sentence that is handed to her. That was after she said she was no longer going to be present at the end of last week. She will, however, be in the building in a holding cell, so there is still time for her to decide to be present in court. But as we say, it's unlikely that that's going to happen.
And the key thing is that the families now, they like previous situations where we've had killers not actually appearing in court. They're saying they want to change the law. Government's talking about putting a bill into the King's Speech. Lots of people saying that's not soon enough, but they're also demanding a change to the public inquiry that's been announced by the government within hours on Friday of those guilty verdicts.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the two other major things that are likely to develop further today. On that first point, the independent inquiry, which was of course announced on Friday by the government, there are fears that because that lacks any statutory powers, it means that witnesses aren't forced to come forward. It means that personal documents cannot be forced to be presented to the inquiry. There are fears that that will mean that crucial evidence will not be unearthed into what could be a potential NHS cover-up. And that could mean that in the future this could well happen again. There have been repeated calls for that law to be changed. And then, yes, as you say, this questions for the NHS, questions for the Countess of Chester Hospital as to why these concerns around Lucy Letby were not dealt with, were not listened to sooner. And potentially, as we heard earlier at the end of last week, some of these babies could have been prevented from being harmed had those concerns been listened to.
That is the really, really heartbreaking thing. Well, you're going to be there all day for us, and we'll see how long that lasts. Again, if there are individual statements from the families or a joint one. Thank you very much, Victoria Innes, there live outside Manchester Crown Court, where Lucy Letby is expected to be facing a whole life tariff. It's only the fourth woman in Britain to face such a tariff for the murder of 7 babies, an attempted murder of 6 babies. Bear in mind, of course, there were 8 other babies. 2 cases that were found not guilty. 6, there was no verdict reached. But we know that police fear that she may have attacked 30 more babies. And they're looking at all 4,000 babies that entered any ward that she was working on during her time as a nurse. Let's talk about this with Dr. Dewi Evans, who's a consultant paediatrician advising on child safeguarding issues. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dewi. You're one of the independent medical witnesses for the prosecution. You were involved in this case, absolutely harrowing case. Any case involving the deaths of children, and certainly on this scale, is just, awful for anyone to go through, whether it's the families, whether it's even the jurors who are the unsung heroes in this, listening to 10 months of evidence. But the most upsetting thing, I think, for most of us is learning that there were so many opportunities to have stopped Lucy Letby that managers failed to take. What was your takeaway from that?
I found it unbelievable, because I knew nothing about management input until towards the end of the trial, and of course an awful lot of information has come out in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. But having been involved with clinical negligence cases as an independent medical person for over 30 years, it doesn't surprise me. The default action of medical management is to sweep things under the carpet, and if there is a conflict between what is in the interest of the patient and what is in the interest of the corporation, i.e. the health board, sadly, the interest of the patients comes second. And I think in this case, it's not only the interest of the patient that was ignored, the concerns of the medical people who are, after all, the ones responsible. They were ignored as well. It's absolutely shocking. It's unbelievable.
That's the thing. It is unbelievable, and yet it happened. And we're told lessons will be learned. And I was saying a little bit earlier on the show, lessons are never learned. We have scandal after scandal in institutions like NHS Trust, and there does seem to be this very strong urge of management, put the fingers in their ears, cover their eyes, and just tell everyone who's whistleblowing, shut your mouths, because we don't want to know.
We don't want to know, and it's worse than that. The NHS, of course, is a monopoly. Therefore, if you are a doctor or nurse, you have to work in the NHS. And several consultants, senior people who have confronted management, nothing to do with this particular case, confronted management because of concerns regarding patient safety, end up being accused of bullying and intimidating our wonderful managers and lose their jobs, and as a result have their whole careers destroyed. And that has happened in a number of places. So whistleblowers don't get rewarded, they very much get hurt. Well, we know that two doctors who've been speaking out since the verdicts, Dr. Stephen Brewery and Dr. Ravi Jairam, they both said they repeatedly raised the flag to say, look, we're just concerned, could you get her off the ward? Okay, don't let Letby work the night shift where there are fewer other staff around. That's when the babies seem to be dying. They raised concerns. It eventually got to the point where they were told, by HR, you have to apologise. 7 paediatricians had to apologise to Lucy Letby before things could move on, or they were threatened that they would be taken to the General Medical Council, as you say, not just even lose their job there, but lose their licence even to practice. Did that shock you, or have you come across so many cases like this that you realise that this isn't unusual? It is shocking, but it's happened before, and I've no doubt, given the power that the managers have currently, they have far too much power, they have far too much money, they have far too little experience and not a great deal of intelligence in many cases, and they get away with it. Partly because of changes in government policy over the last few years. Community health councils were abolished in England some years ago. Legal aid for families who had concerns regarding clinical problems, that was abolished. But the most concerning thing is the bullying and intimidation of clinical staff who stand up to management. So they're completely out of control. They need a regulatory body, and we need to change the system. It is the managers who should be accountable to the doctors and to the nurses, and not the other way around. And
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm sure my audience is cheering you on as well. I mean, this is the thing. It is extraordinary that so many senior, experienced doctors should go to managers and say, we are concerned that babies are dying on our ward, off the scale from previous years. The one change has been the arrival of this nurse. She's on duty every time that this happens. We think something's going on. The idea that wouldn't be acted on, I find extraordinary. I mean, unbelievable that people wouldn't go, hold on a minute, OK, Nurse Letby, we're going to put you on a different ward, or we're going to put you... I mean, at one point she was put on administrative duties, and then there was a formal apology, the HR process, and then she went back on the ward and, yes, killed again, of course, and attempted to kill again, they believe. It is extraordinary that anyone would put concerns about bullying or concerns about the hospital's reputation above the life of newborn babies. I find that incomprehensible. Do you?
That's absolutely, I agree absolutely. That's the way of the NHS, and this is, I think, indirectly the reason why there is so much concern, conflict within the NHS currently. We have nurses going on strikes, we have junior doctors going on strike, we have consultants, for goodness sake, going on strike. It reflects the disillusion that people have because of the lack of respect for their profession and the gung-ho attitude of health boards. So it's appalling. And I think the other thing is the public, who are the people who pay for the NHS, they have no direct input into the appointment of a single individual within health boards. They have no clout at all. All the appointments, chairs of health boards, they're political appointments. Therefore, the politicians will appoint people who are a safe pair of hands, politically biased towards them, of course, and that applies to the non-executive directors. And everyone else. So
absolutely. I mean, this is something we're going to have to get to the bottom of. My biggest worry is when they say lessons will be learned, is that the one thing we know is that lessons will not be learned. Dr. Dewi Evans, so appreciate you joining us. You're a consultant paediatrician advising on child safeguarding issues